Greetings, thank you for lending an ear to the voice of the times for Saturday, January 22, 2022. Brought to you by Wilcon Depot, the country's leading home improvement and construction supplies retailer. Shop conveniently 24/7 with Wilcon Online Store. Just go to shop.wilcon.com.ph. For today's editorial, Tying Our Own Hands. During the past week, we have detailed several opportunities the soon-to-be adjourned Senate will have missed as legislators turn the attention from the business of governance to trying to convince voters to let them keep their jobs. One of the most frustrating of those missed opportunities is the Senate's failure to pass a bill defining the Philippines' maritime zones. As with other important measures the Senate has allowed to fall by the wayside, such as the bill creating the Vaccine and Virology Institute of the Philippines, the matter of the country's maritime zones was handled swiftly by the House of Representatives. The House passed its version of the bill, House Bill 9981, by a vote of 189 to 0 early last month. At the same time that was happening, a Senate committee was already discussing two counterpart bills, Senate Bills 2333 and 2289 for the proposed Filipina Maritime Zones Act. Just days prior, Senator and presidential candidate Panfilo Lacson, who chairs the Senate National Defense Committee, one of two committees tackling the bills, had filed a resolution condemning the continued presence and hostile acts committed by Chinese ships within the country's territory and urging the government to assert its sovereign rights. Not to single out Senator Lacson, quite the opposite, in fact, because he displayed initiative where most of his Senate colleagues did not. But it would seem sensible that a measure would greatly strengthen the ability of the government to assert its sovereign rights, and moreover had just been unanimously passed by the House would be worthy of immediate attention. Once again, however, the Senate's sense of priorities has not followed what would seem to be the national interest. The Maritime Zones Act, something which the Philippines committed to in 1988 as a means of harmonizing domestic legislation with the provisions of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea or UNCLOS, will have to wait for at least another year. House Bill or HB 9981, which is similar to the two bills filed in the Senate, is a general declaration defining the maritime zones under the jurisdiction of the Philippines, including internal waters, archipelagic waters, territorial sea, contiguous zone, the exclusive economic zone or EEZ, and the continental shelf. The maximum extent of the Philippines' territorial sea is 12 nautical miles, while the contiguous zone is a buffer of an additional 24 nautical miles, and the EEZ, which is no doubt already a familiar term to most people, extends a further 200 nautical miles. HB 9981 also delineates the Philippines Maritime Zone in accordance with the definitions in Article 76 of the UNCLOS, which covers the continental shelf, where it extends beyond 200 nautical miles. The measure provides for the country's sovereign rights to explore and exploit living and non-living resources found in the same maritime zones, thus establishing the Philippines' exclusive rights in these zones as provided for by the UNCLOS and other existing laws and treaties. Along with the Archipelagic Sea Lanes Act, the Philippine Maritime Zones Act would complete the Philippines Archipelagic House in terms of legally defending Philippine waters and the rights claimed by the country and their different zones, according to the House of Committee on Foreign Affairs Chairperson Ann K. Hoffer, who guided the passage of HB 9981. There were several bills filed to amend the 2009 version of the Archipelagic Sea Lanes Act to reflect the outcome of the Philippines 2016 Arbitral Award, but these have also been held up. In this case, however, the fault is not entirely with the Senate, as the House has also not been able to complete its work on the measure. Lawmakers are always among the first and loudest voices to cry out against China's illegitimate claims and bullying disrespect of the Philippines' rights in the West Philippine Sea, but seems less inclined to do the actual work necessary to give those protests legal weight. Without the corresponding laws, they are tying the country's hands and limiting the ability of our diplomats, to both work with China and gain international support to establish a fair and just management of maritime rights and privileges. And that's the editorial for Saturday, January 22, 2022. For more news and information, get a copy of the Manila Times on print, subscribe to its digital edition, or log on to www.manilatimes.net. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, and listen to the voice of the Times.